We're all in different phases of getting back to in-person training after COVID lockdown. Some of us are training. Our school's been training in person for a while now. Some of us are just getting ready to go back. And some of us are still waiting for that green light. So today I want to talk about some of the mistakes that I made when it was time to go back. Hey, what's up? I'm Ken, this is Kenfu TV, and each week I release videos in the martial arts, philosophy, technique, training, that sort of thing. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, I hope you stick around. I hope that you subscribe, hit those notifications so you know when the new videos come out. If you like this video, if it has value for you, hit that like, and while you're down there, leave a comment. So let's get into the mistakes that I made going back to in-person training. So first off, quarantine was hard. Training at home was hard. Maintaining motivation and continuing to do that when you couldn't go to the dojo and do that was hard. There's a video that I'll link in the description of what we did, how we approached continuing to train from home, and how that went a little bit. It was good. It really was. And it was really good to get to continue to do it, to get to see everybody, even if it was over Zoom or something like that. Just getting to see people was a huge deal. It really, really helped, because being stuck at home and not getting to see everybody, that was probably the hardest part. It was easily the most difficult part for me. So we continued to train. We did stuff from home and kept it going, and that was great. But eventually it became time to train in person again. First off, super pumped. That was really great. And in the meantime, different video in the description, we had lost our dojo. We had to find a new dojo, a new space, a new home, and we had to get it set up. We had to get everything rolling again. So as we came back, we were coming back not only together, but also in a completely different way, completely different space, different feeling. And there are things that didn't go well. Now, it's not entirely true. I mean, things went well. Everybody's back together. We're training, and things were good. But I really struggled. Every time I showed up, it was hard for me. I really had a difficult time. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, because I know a lot of the people who are in the comments and subscribe to this channel are in that position. They're teachers or running their own school or doing something like that. And it's important that we dig into the things that don't go well. The parts that don't work in life are the things that we learn from. And I certainly did some learning on this. So I'll boil it down. I'll boil it down to 5 things that I felt really were the main things that hung me up. And I'll talk a little bit about maybe my advice on how to get over them or work with them. So number 1, don't wait for your students. Get back into it. You probably have some students who have been continuing to train or staying in touch at least and communicating, but there's others that haven't been, or they've been busy or whatever. At our peak right before COVID, we had maybe 100 students throughout the different programs that we offer at the school. During the lockdown training, if we had 15, I'd be surprised. I'd have to go look, but it was definitely less than 20. All said and done, it may have been less than 10. Significant decrease in students. People didn't want to train. People didn't want to train over Zoom. People had different things going on in their lives. Everybody's life was upside down. And so a lot changed. So the first thing I want to say is that when you go back, you're going to be missing some people. Not everybody will come back. At least not right away. And that's okay. But here's the hang up. Here's where I struggled. I kept feeling like as things returned to normal, as we had a place to train, and as this became an opportunity, as we found our way to do this, eventually people would filter back in and we'd be back full speed. So I found myself holding back some of the training, holding back some of the material, because I was waiting for everybody to be there. I didn't want people to miss out, and what I was missing out on is the fact that there were people right in front of me being held back. They were doing great, they were working hard, and whatever we worked on, they were all in and they were on it. And it was awesome, and that was such a motivation for me. But that didn't stop me from holding back some of the things, going, well, I want to wait till more people are here before we start working on this, or before we work on that. Don't do it. If my experience is any indication, the school has steadily been getting back up to the size that it was pre-COVID, but it's mostly new faces. Honestly, very few of the people who were training with us before that, who didn't do the online training, came back. It just, one thing or another, it didn't really happen. Meanwhile, a lot of new people have showed up. We've got great school with great students and so many people around, but they're not the same faces. So if I would have waited for the same faces to come around, I would have been waiting forever. So don't hold yourself back with that. Focus on the people who are there. Give them everything. Those are the people who are motivated. They're committed. They are loyal. Focus on them. Let the other people fill in around them, whoever those people may be. Maybe old, maybe new. let those people filter in around and focus on the people who stayed with you the whole time. Those are the people when I sit down to think about how the school is going, those are the people that I'm thinking about, the people that stuck it out and went through all of this stuff with me and all the challenging things that I went through, and they were there for me for that. Those people are important, and don't overlook them. Number 2, when we started training, we had the new space. We were getting together. We had been training in whatever, on Zoom. We'd been training in our regular clothes and just kind of getting together. And some people wore the uniforms, some people didn't. And we just got in and trained. And when we got back together, we did the same thing. We just got together and started training. Honestly, I kind of liked it. I was just throw on some shorts and t-shirt and just go train. But it helped to always keep that feeling farther away. This is something that we're doing for now. Things will get back to normal. We'll get back to regular training. But let's just ease into it. We'll just ease in. One of the big shifts for me never actually came until we started wearing uniforms again. When we started putting the gi on and we started having that ritual of getting ready for class, it really made a big difference for me. When we started doing that ritual's important. Having a ritual that helps you do that. And that's something that I've looked at a lot lately, is the idea of getting prepped for class. Going through the opening ceremony, going through the warm-up, certain things that are kind of the foundation, the rock that you hold on to keep yourself steady while the rest of the class changes and ebbs and flows and fluctuates. There are components of the class that help lock you in to what's normal, help give you that security and that sense of self when you're doing what you do. I don't think people mind it too much, but in the meantime, for me, in my head, it just kept feeling far away. Just kept feeling like we weren't there. And it's okay for me to need to do something that helps get my head in the game. And that part of that was getting back to wearing the uniforms and getting back to that early ritual. That leads right into number 3. Number 3 is performing the ceremony. I stepped these out. I did it gradual, so we got back and we trained, and it just felt like a group getting together to train a little bit. And then we slowly started putting the uniforms back on. All right, we're gonna wear the uniforms, let's get started. And that helped. And then later, we started bringing in the ceremony, working on vows at the beginning of class, working on the things that we say at the beginning and end of class. 2 and 3 definitely go together. That really was the thing that transitioned into it feeling more normal again, into it feeling like something that had a structure to it. One of the parts that was the hardest for me, and I never really talked about it, it just was a thing that was happening to me, is I would get in there and we'd work on whatever. In the karate class, when we first got back, we had just finished working on the process of building a kata. We built a quarantine kata. And the whole idea was to go through the process. So we spent weeks, every day, sitting down and having a conversation about the process of building a kata, the process of building a syllabus, really, and this idea of what are your goals? What do you want a student to attain by the time that they reach the end of their training? What things are important about that? What principles support that structure? What examples do you want to use? What techniques or different examples do you want to use to support those principles, to teach those principles? And then lastly, what order would you want to teach them in so that you can put them from start to finish? You need to know this before you learn that. You need to be exposed to this principle before you start working on that principle. And so we went through all of that and we built a kata. And mostly I actually stayed back. I asked a lot of questions and I got people thinking, but I mostly stayed back and let them do that. And when we got back into the dojo, we were continuing to work on that. So that group was the group that was doing that. And so for a little bit, that's what was happening. As that kind of came to a close, we needed to get back into the regular training. And for me, it would always feel like we didn't quite do enough. Like I never quite gave enough. We'd work the drills, but then I'd see things like, we really need to work on that. Like you need to get better at this, or we need to focus on that. But I had this overwhelming feeling of, but yeah, as things get back to normal, we'll be able to spend more time on that. So I was making an excuse. I was allowing myself to go, that stuff can wait. For when? For what? What was I waiting for? What was the thing that was going to be the trigger that said, okay, now it's time to focus on that? And so I would feel frustrated. I'd be like, man, it just felt like we didn't get as far as I wanted to today, but it should be expected. This is normal. Everything's weird right now. That was a mindset that was killing my ability to create progress for people. So 2 and 3, wearing the uniforms, performing the ceremony, helped get my head right. They helped lock in that time, like, hey, it's time. We're doing this. Let's put some discipline in and let's focus on these things and let's build those. That didn't necessarily come easy, but it helped. And I wish that I wouldn't have waited as long as I did to start that. So maybe my advice for that is Don't wait. I mean, it's up to you. Do it how you want. If you want to ease into it, but I encourage you, maybe when you get back together, just full stop. Just drop right in. Throw your uniforms on, go through your ceremony, build it like it never changed. If for nothing else, as the teachers, it's gonna help make sure that your headspace is right and that you're not leaving things for later and not really knowing when later's gonna be. Another one that really pulled back for me, and it started because of COVID, and I've heard tons of people talk about it, how are you doing this, whatever, is grading. Looking at people for rank, focusing on the things that people need to do to continue making their progress forward. And it was pretty easy to go, yeah, well, we really won't worry about that till in person. And that's natural. And I think a lot of people led that direction because of the fact that there are certain parts of the art that need to be done that way. That you need that physicality and you need that in-person stuff to help really suss out what's needing to be done and what is being done and what is being learned. And that's not entirely true. I mean, honestly, I had a promotion while we were doing Zoom classes because there was one person in particular who, when I watched her turn in her homework or her videos of her doing stuff, I went, she's got it, she's there, and I don't want her to wait. Let's recognize this. And so we did that. But then it was hard to get into that mindset for all of the classes as a whole. Keep in mind, I was continuing to teach karate, jiu-jitsu, and eskrima all throughout the week on a regular basis from home. And that was a lot, and that was hard. Really, I can't actually express how difficult that was. That was really difficult. It's probably one of the hardest parts of teaching I've done so far. But as we got back, that same lingering feeling that said, well, we're not quite back yet, like we'll get to it, also had me not looking at rank right away. And I'm not saying you got to jump back and get people promoted. That's not it. But focusing on grading means that you're focusing on the things that people need to improve, that you're focusing on that stuff. And I really felt like I just didn't do as good a job as I could have because everything continued to feel a little further out. My advice on number 4 is focus on grading right away. Make assessments, make the time to make assessments of where people are at, and start doing things to help you get thinking, get your head back into that space where you're paying attention to what progress people need to make. If you're a good instructor, you're probably focusing on people's progress all the time, but it's not the same as when you're focusing the other way. And so make the time for it, make the assessments, and don't keep thinking, well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. That was the really big problem for me, was this idea of we'll get to that. When? There was no clear marker for me of when that would be. So don't allow yourself to say, we'll get to that. Start getting to it. Start getting to it now. Make a plan. And if you're like, we will get to that, then at least decide, we'll get to that 3 weeks from now. We'll get to that next week. Give yourself something to latch onto, a deadline that says, I'm going to get to that, and I'm going to get to that soon. And so you can see the biggest problem for me was just this feeling that you were never quite back. That's gone now. We've continued to train. We've done promotions. We've got the uniforms. We're doing the ceremonies. We're doing all this stuff. We're training regularly. There's a bunch of new people. There's a bunch of new energy. It's so good. So good. But it was really hard getting there. It really was. And I think it's okay for it to be hard. It's okay for you to not feel like you're at your best because this was a difficult thing to get through. And hopefully some of this stuff and realizing that other people are going through it too helps you go, okay, I can do this. And it doesn't take much, it just takes a little to get yourself over that hump and start getting there again. Part of the difficulty for me is I'm the only instructor in the classes that I teach. Especially at the time, my instructor has come around and started teaching more recently, more lately. He's kind of had time to come back and spend more time in. But when we were first getting back, it was just me. And so I didn't even have other teachers keeping me motivated to push through that barrier. So this is me looking at you saying, get motivated, get pushed through that barrier, find the things, make the assessments, find the things that you need to do to take things further, to take things back to where they need to be, and to focus on the things that you want to accomplish. So last, number 5, embrace the changes. Things are different. Things have not gone back to normal. I think a lot of us know in our secret heart that it's not going back to normal. There is a new normal. Embrace that. There are parts of the training that are going to be different. There are parts of people's mentalities that are going to be different. There's going to be things that people picked up on because of the way that they've trained through this that is different. Embrace that. It's awesome. Continue to use it. Leverage it in all the ways that you know how. Don't be afraid to create new things, new ways of doing things, new ideas and new approaches and perspectives on the stuff that you do or used to do, because there's a lot of value there. There's a lot of growth there The school, the students, the art will benefit from you taking everything you learned and not just shoving it aside now that we're back into the dojo again, but keeping that, looking at the parts that you picked up on and taking that through, continuing it on. It's such an important thing. Probably one of my favorite things, like a bonus, like a number 6, numero 6, is when we were doing the at-home training and using Google Classroom and stuff. One of the things we did is we sent out a form. I created a survey that was asking people to rank how they felt about different parts of the art. So I generated a list out of my own mind of the things that I wanted to know how people felt about, and then had them fill that out and turn it in. That's awesome. Do that. It was really helpful to see how people thought about where they were at. You're going to get different things. You're going to get people who are marking things kind of right where you expected them to be, right where they are. That's great. You're going to get people who are feeling weaker on stuff that you feel like they should feel stronger on. You're going to get people feeling stronger on stuff that you're like, well, that's probably not true. But having that assessment, having that time to look at that objectively that way, it's huge. So number 6 is that. Make an assessment. See how people feel about where they are. That's one of the things that I'm going to continue to carry on. One of my changes that I'm embracing is getting that feedback from people and not feeling like I have to be the one to do it all. That sometimes it's okay that the student feeds back. Coming from a traditional background, it was always from the top down. Whatever you did, I would say you would do, and if I told you to do, then you would do, then it would go down this way. It needs to feed both ways, and that's probably one of the most important changes that I want to embrace, is allowing things to feed both ways. So there it is. It's going to be hard. It might be hard right now because you might already be doing it. You might have already pushed past this, but maybe identify with some of the things I'm talking about. But the truth is, we're all going through it, and it is hard. And by all means, if you are stuck or you feel like you need to talk to somebody, hit those comments, email me, ken@kenfu.tv, and I'm glad to have a discussion with you. We'll talk, we'll jump on the phone, we'll do whatever, and help you get through this, because it's amazing how hard it is to just go back to the dojo. That feels like something that should be easy, and it was a lot harder than I expected. So that's it for today. We'll talk comments from last week, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so last week's video was how to improve karate. My thoughts on what we need to do to improve karate. This was a video based on a comment on my birthday video where I asked you guys to throw stuff down there and I'd make a video about it. So some of you are continuing to do that. By all means, it's still open. Drop a comment if there's something you want me to talk about, and let's do it. All right, Kenji Martial Arts. Kenji Martial Arts was the one who left the original comment, and he says, your response was very in-depth and great to listen to, and very much in the kind of points I was looking for. The reason why I asked was, of course, people like combat sports like BJJ. However, I feel karate also has so much to offer as well. I only hope with the popularity of Cobra Kai, it will get people more interested and we can see new students back at the dojo when all this ends. Apropos for today's video, I would like to see a video on changes you might make to your karate. That would be fun to see. That one's been on my mind a lot, and if you didn't catch the podcast with Conversations on Karate, there are things that we talked about in there that are relative to that, but I'm thinking about putting together a video on this as well. Speaking of Conversations on Karate, Sue Roberts, love the approach of defining areas we want to improve, and I like the way that you read out comments from your listeners. It was weird for me to read that out loud. Yeah, this is my favorite part. It really is. You guys leaving comments and having a conversation and getting to have a little bit of this is really one of the most fun parts, and one of the things that makes me feel like I'm actually giving back a little bit. So much of this can just feel like speaking out into a vacuum. So these comments really help. They really help keep me motivated. They really help show me that this has some kind of value, and I appreciate it. Jeremy Hillard says, all just my opinion, but first remove children's black belts, then belts in general. Remove the beginner application. What are we saying when we say you learn this, then we teach you the good or actual application? Why are we approaching modern karate like it's in any way different than MMA? Do you think that the guys in karate's formative days approach their training in the light of fixing a perceived problem with the art itself? No way. They just trained. I also believe that most dojos are missing the mark with their approach to the art in regard to conditioning. Students need to be striving to be at the peak of their fitness potential at all times. Be strong, agile, and fast. Build your skills on this foundation. I'm really glad that you said that. I think that it's really true and really important, but also really difficult. I know for me, in my training, my instructor would talk about the fact that we're gonna do a light warm-up to make sure that you're not working out cold, but when it comes to conditioning and strength and that stuff, you need to get in the gym, you need to work. I've got an hour and a half with you, and I'm not gonna spend an hour of it getting you conditioned when I could be teaching you karate? And I think that's one of the difficult things that we run into is just time. How much time do you have? The average person doesn't want to commit to a 3 to 4 hour class, so they can get a half-hour warm-up and then a full hour of conditioning before they start training the material. I find this even with the solo stuff. I spend more time focusing on partner work when there's potential for partners to work together than solo work, just because what do you have time for? And when you're at home, you have time to work the solo stuff, but you might not have a partner. So in the dojo, you need to work with your partner. So it's just difficult. I think mostly it's time that's creating that problem, but I don't disagree. I think that it's important. I think we need to focus on it. Alex Dominguez says, Ryan from Combat Karate is my best friend, and quite honestly, more like a brother to me. I've been so proud to see him continue to grow and grind with Combat Karate. He is one of the most genuine and hard workers I know. Thanks for featuring him. It was my pleasure. It really was. I'm super glad that he reached out. I enjoy one of the very first comments that he ever left was talking about his Munido Karate, and I just really... it just stood out, and he's just a guy who just genuinely stands out to people, and I think that's amazing. And so it was my absolute pleasure to do that. Stuart James Gray says, I hear people often say that karate is better than nothing. That kind of representation is not good enough. What can we do to change the face of karate in light of what people are getting exposed to? And I think that's the problem. We really need to do some cheerleading. It always feels dirty to be the one telling people about yourself, and I don't even like to tell people that I have this YouTube channel. It just feels kind of dirty to talk about it. It feels like you're being full of ego or whatever. But the truth is, karate is never going to have its time in the light that we want people to see it in, if we don't shine that light ourselves. We just have to do it. Chilling with a Grin says, some marketing questions came to mind during the video, many of which you've addressed. How do we describe the services being offered? What channels and places is the offer sold and delivered? What events that put that offer in front of the target market? What way can people connect to the community while considering the offer exploring merchandise? How could we smooth this process in recognition to accepting the offer? What physical indicators point to the availability or quality of the offer? Yeah, I think when you put it in marketing terms like that, that's exactly what we're talking about. The other part is when you put it in marketing terms like that, I know that most people that just heard that felt gross about it, and they don't like it. It just feels like they're selling out or something like that. It doesn't have to be that way. You can run a school on the right morals with good integrity and still have to answer these questions. We are offering a service. We are offering something that we believe in. My father said, if you believe in something, you can sell it. And the important thing about sales is sales doesn't have to be a dirty thing. Selling it somebody why they should care about something is still a sell. So sell it. Sell why it's important. And marketing terms aside, these are the exact kind of things that we need to be looking at, the exact kind of questions we need to be answering. How do we get it in front of the right people? How do we make sure that we are approaching it the right way? These are all important things. Akurafiri says, when I started karate, I was intrigued by its fighting applications, its sport competitions, its history, its physical health aspects, its community, and later its way of self-improvement helped me out of depression. That's awesome. To me, there is no real difference between these aspects of karate. They tie together and make a greater whole. This is what makes karate so great, the unity of these aspects. I would say it's karate's philosophy. It is very close to Taoism. Even the characters Do and Dao are the same, by the way. And I think this unity of its aspects is what karate really needs to improve on. Not to emphasize one aspect too much, but rather to find its balance again. Yes, this is the way. I think you're right. I really do. For the people who know what karate is, having that come together is excellent. I don't think it's very marketable. I don't think that it's going to sweep, if we want, one of my feelings on that initial question was how do we get it out there in front of people and make people want to have it? And the truth is, I think this is what I want people to have. What you describe is what I want people to have, but that's always going to lead to a really small subset and that's okay, because you can have a small subset of people that get that benefit. But I think if you want a large subset of people, if you want to get it out in front of more people, then it has to specialize. And that's just the truth when it comes to numbers and making it viable on a larger scale. And that's why I think it's important that we're just okay that karate gets to be what it is, and it gets to be the size that it is, and gets the attention that it does. Because for it to be the things that we love the most, we can't put it in everybody's hands. It just won't work that way. Anyway, that's comments this week. Let's jump in and wrap it up. Okay, that's it. What is your best advice? What's your advice? I want you to hit the comments, and I want you to leave your advice for how you got back to it and the things that you learned getting back into the dojo, or the things that you're thinking about. In the meantime, if you like these kind of videos and you want to subscribe, you can do that right here. You can catch a playlist of videos like this right here, and a couple more videos you might like right here. I'm Ken. This is Kenfu TV, and I'll catch you in the next one.